G'day, everybody. Welcome back to Metaphysics of Fiction. I'm your host, Lewis Briffer.
Now, Jack.
Today, we are talking about a movie from 1999 starring Philip Seymour Hoffman and Tom Cruise called Magnolia. Now, this is a very rather bizarre movie, in my opinion. Not because it was like all weird, kind of like Inception or anything, but because of how well it was played out of different people's lives. The movie was kind of separate stories of all these different people that would seemingly never meet, but somehow all their stories manage to interconnect in some manner, whether it's large influence or it's just a small relation. And oh man, what do I want to say about this? This movie would maybe really it really makes you think about how our actions can heavily influence someone else despite how infinitesimal our action could actually be. It's essentially the whole situation of a butterfly's wing beat can cause a hurricane on the other side of the planet.
What I find impressive is that the butterfly effect is not the only major theme in this movie. That the only reason we're covering Magnolia is because one of our friends, Daniel, said he messaged me one day, and I hadn't heard about this movie, and he thought that it was very deep and that it was very thought-provoking kind of movie, and he was right. So Daniel, any movie recommendation you ever give me, I will take without without a second thought at this point, because this movie is genius.
Yep, shout
This
out to
movie,
our friend Daniel Cook. Thanks, Daniel.
thanks Daniel. This movie is brilliant. This movie and it's in the beginning scene, it sets up the whole butterfly effect, and this idea that coincidences, that these completely irrelevant events happening side by side of each other, that they could be interlinked in some way, that they're not just coincidences, or maybe you can just call them coincidences, but is there a chance that these things affect each other, that these have influences on each other? And that was echoed towards the end of the movie as well, where they're sort of asking the audience to reflect that, maybe you need to be a nicer person, because you don't know how your actions are going to permeate throughout the world. And then on top of this idea, you have the idea of the past never really being through with you. And this was a line spouted by Donnie, I believe, where it's, you can be done with the past, but the past is never done with you.
Just to give you listeners the idea, a lot of the characters have their own stories going on. Donnie was a character who was a child celebrity and was very well known, but he's really down on his luck. So like people don't really take him seriously, and he's just trying to make his way through life in a way. But he is also trying to live through not only his former celebrity, but he's also just trying to be something he's not. You also have other characters, including a cop played by John C. Riley. He was kind of like your average everyday guy. This is the guy anybody can be. He was just a cop. He works out every morning. He says his morning prayer. He goes to work, does his job, and goes home. Then we have Linda, a wife who's dealing with her husband on on his deathbed, and she's a little bit she's very very possessive of him. She doesn't like people judging her. In a way, you can kind of call her a Karen in a way. Come on, you got to give me that one. I mean, that one was true, so true. She went off at the damn, who the hell were they? The pharmacy
The
guys.
Yeah, the pharmacy guys. But
With what that guy was saying, I would have gone off at him too.
well, here's the thing, right? There are multiple moments in the movie where the characters are called to confront their current circumstance, to confront their lives, essentially. And this happens to Tom Cruise's character as well, in the form of the reporter. So it happens to this lady. So these characters are interconnected as well. But although the wife is more interconnected with the husband's overarching story, where Basically,
Yes. So she's connected to Tom Cruise's character, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, who was the nurse, in case you don't know, not nurse,
hmm,
the doctor that was with him.
hmm.
They have a specific name. It was they're a nurse that kind of stays by people who are dying at home, and just wait for them to go,
We'll,
just make sure they're comfortable. And
we'll give Paolo a call.
yeah, yeah. Hey, Paolo, if you're listening, could you just put the terminology in the comment section?
Yeah, right down
Hello.
below.
Yeah. And the old man, I cannot remember what his name was, but the guy that was dying, as well as actually Tom Cruise himself, they don't actually interact, but they are connected.
So the wife has been called to in a very roundabout kind of way where the pharmacy people and this is a normal thing. She even talks about how this is a normal thing where they sort of give her looks and they do the checks because they're like, oh man, this is a lot of drugs that this lady is getting.
Not just a lot of drugs, a lot of strong, powerful drugs.
Yeah, like very like and the pharmacy guys even comment on this. This is basically speed in a pill. This is oh man, this is gonna get you off. This is um
Now she yelled at the guy, but frankly, with what he was saying, I would have at least like made a snide comment at the guy. I was like, "Look, bro, look, mate, could you just like mind your own damn business? Just don't comment on my stuff. I'm going through enough." Like I would
well,
have said something like that.
I mean, all of this could have been remedied if she just said, in the other times that she walks into the pharmacy as well, my husband is dying of brain and lung cancer.
Yeah.
And we're just trying to fix him up, and then immediately there would have been a much more respectable tone thrown towards her, where in these scenes. But because she doesn't want to confront, she doesn't even want to touch the subject, because the reality is she's actually fallen in love with her husband. She's fallen in love with her husband, a man who she initially married in order to just get the money from him.
A
Like
gold digger with Stockholm syndrome.
yeah, the gold digger actually grew a heart, and it grew three times, three sizes that day. And the similar thing happens with Tom Cruise, because he also acts out in a similar sort of violent and verbally abusive way, when the reporter is just trying to get to the crux of his history. It's, wait a minute, no, your father didn't die. It was your mother who died, and your father is still alive. So why are we covering up that fact? Why are you trying to run away from that fact? And in that scene, it's beautifully shot as well. He stands up and puts his hands on his hips like the 14-year-old child that he still is. From that scarring, from that trauma of having to take care of your mother at age 14 who's dying of cancer. And because he hasn't grown anymore, he hasn't matured anymore from that moment, he's standing up right in front of her, the adult sitting down, calmly just looking straight at him, calmly just giving answers, adult, mature answers. And he sits there and he's like, well, you know what? You're a bitch. A very, very 14-year-old-esque way of acting. Because he can't deal with it. He can't confront that past. He can't confront that history.
That's pretty much also why he started. Was why I think he also started his business. Like, when people find struggle to like confront such heavy topics, they usually kind of go into like they dive into a certain vice. This guy was vice was self pleasure in a way, like finding women, and then he wanted to kind of then he made a business out of it. And you can kind of notice the difference too, because when the interview started, the guy wouldn't shut up. He just kept talking and talking and talking about what he does, about what it means to him, and like he's just kind of like built this character, and it was kind of like he was reciting a script, and he was just being this character. And then the reporter confronts him on this parts of his life that is what he actually is, and then he kind of just shuts down because he's just like, this isn't the character. This isn't who I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be this guy. So no, I'm just going to judge this woman until she realizes this isn't me. This is me. Type of situation.
Yeah,
And
and I haven't fully unpacked his sort of like rationality behind why he made Seduce and Destroy. which what a title of a book. Because what would you normally think? Like, you are a 14-year-old kid who now has to take care of your dying sick mother, and you're forced into the situation because your father decided to leave. Like, your terrible father has decided to exit from your life and neglect his responsibility. Wouldn't you be more inclined to hate the father in this situation, to hate men in this situation, to try and push back against
Like being a
I
bad
know,
man.
and this is the thing, because I find it very odd how he's actually taking out a lot of his past trauma on women now, or he's copying that image that his father has left him, and he's copying that image. It's like, now this is going to be me. This is going to be me as the adult, and he's now, trying to teach other men to try and be the same way as his father, to just simply to be there for one woman and
Disrespect,
then
yeah,
neglect.
yeah, kind of like in a way be disrespectful to women. Like, yeah, I'm not actually really understanding that myself. Probably need to get a
We
psychologist on here.
God, like, I want to do a little bit more digging on his history, because that it puzzles me, but but something about it makes sense. Like, there is a link there, and I haven't followed that link to its conclusion yet. Because
In a way,
especially right when you have the scene where Tom Cruise is with his father, and he's
just breaking down.
he's breaking down. His hand is so tightly clenched that it's turning white. Like, all the blood is just leaving that fist. All the rage that he has towards this man, and yet he's feeling sorrow. He's feeling grief that his father is passing. It's
Curse out decent childhoods.
oh god, it's so strong, and it's so that scene is really powerful, and it's very complicated in its themes.
Yeah,
And
I'm not gonna lie. I was tears, which
yeah,
kind of went away with the big moments. We'll get to that moment later on. You can also say that Tom Cruise and his dad's story is kind of also in a way connected to the story of Stanley and his dad, the quiz show kid. Like, that
yes,
was, yeah, the abusive father, just kind of seeing his kid as a form of a meal ticket, not even seeing it as his child.
no, yeah. I fully agree. And because that's the similar scenario between Donnie and Stanley, where Donnie is a glimpse into Stanley's future, and Stanley is a glimpse into Donnie's past. But sort of where they diverge is Donnie went along with his parents the whole way, and Stanley eventually sort of stands up for himself towards the end. He has that kind of awakening moment.
Yeah, like, screw
And
you guys. I'm done. I don't want to do this no more.
yeah, exactly. And
I don't
it's
need about
very
this.
God, it's like
It's
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 exactly like you said. It's Stanley's dad is just simply using Stanley as a way to get money, as a way to earn income, and he doesn't actually care about his son. He doesn't care about what his son is feeling, or what his son actually wants, to the level of he doesn't even care that his son needs to go to the bathroom.
it's the bathroom. This is like a basic human right. I think that kid probably could have actually like sued or something for that.
Yeah, in reality, yeah.
Yeah, and it actually led to a good moment. Like, at his final scene, he's just saying, "Dad, you need to be nicer to me." Like, he's not asking, he's telling. He's going,
Yeah.
yeah, he's practically going, "Look, you need to be nice to me. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's this. You have to be nicer to me."
Yeah, I'm not an object. I'm not an income for you. I'm your son. Um and this is what Donnie never did, and this is where their paths are going to diverge. This is how Stanley is going to change his future and not become Donnie.
Yeah, exactly. And like it did not end well for Donnie. Like he ended
No.
up stealing the money. He got his face smashed in. He embarrassed himself in front of the bartender, who I am actually still 50-50%. I really can't decide if he was attracted to the bartender or if he was attracted to the idea of the bartender. Like I'm still trying to figure out what was going on there. Like what was going on really wasn't making much sense to me. In fact, at the part of the time, I thought he was attracted to the old guy that he was talking to. Then I think the old guy was like the bartender's boyfriend. Is like
Yeah,
it
well,
was.
I think this draws back to what Donnie was saying, that in terms of love, is that Donnie is worth loving, that Donnie has that he has love to give, that he is worth being loved, and he is worth loving, and it's and to have your parents effectively use you as a source of income and then to strip away any claim that you have to that money and leave you abandoned, essentially, it would impression an idea into your mind that you are undeserving of love. And this is something that Donnie has held on to very, very tightly. And I think that he has almost transmitted this this idea of being loved, and confused it with the slight affection that the bartender would have given him.
Hmm. Even though the bartender doesn't actually say anything throughout the entire movie, I actually think that might be because the fact I think those teeth, the one with the head of braces, were like covers. So I don't think he could actually open his mouth. So I don't think he could actually say the actual actor couldn't
There
say
was the
anything.
scene where he was where Donnie was like, who said this line? He gives a line, and he was like, who was the man that said this? And then the bartender's like, oh man, I have it in my mind. Like that's all you really get out of him. But I think that leads more evidence to the case that Donnie is impressioning this idea that someone should love him, and this someone should be the bartender, because the bartender is probably the only person who's actually shown him any kind of affection.
Yeah, especially that could actually be seen when Donnie's talking to his boss, who's in the middle of firing him. Like he's bringing up all this facts, like he was the quiz kid. He's saying he's letting him use his fame. He's letting him use his name, so like he feels like that should be given him some level of appreciation, even though he's actually very terrible at his job. Like he's not bringing in any sales or anything like that, but he thinks that it's just him. Everything that's actually him, he should, like his boss should be showing him some appreciation for that. So he's just going nuts on it.
Yeah, well, Donnie is one of the characters who is trapped in the past.
Hmm.
He is trapped and possessed by the past. It really is the moment where it's really, and it's probably why Donnie is the character that says it as well. It's like, you can be done with the past, but the past isn't done with you. And he's on a level, he's aware that that's the fact, that the past is very heavily influencing who he is now as a person, and he can't shake it, to the point where he defines himself based on his past, based on Donnie the Whiz Kid.
And that actually can lead to another connection with a character. And one I really want to talk about is what's her name? No, not
Dog got it,
Donnie.
go.
Yeah, the daughter. I can't
Yeah,
remember her name, and I feel bad about that. It's swear it started with a C. It's like Claudia or
yeah,
something.
yeah. It's
Yeah, Claudia Wilson. I
Claudia
really want
Wilson. Yes.
I want to talk about this one because of the relationship with the police officer. Because of the simple fact, like I said, the police officer is kind of like a resemblance of a ordinary guy. Like he could be any of us. He could be you or me. So the idea that one day he comes to her door and she starts letting him in. He just starts talking to her. He just starts being nice to her. Something that she feels like that hasn't exactly happened much in her life. and it actually starts to change it. He just interacts with it like no one else actually does, and starts really changing a life. And I feel like that's actually a very good moment because it can show that even an ordinary person can change a life just by having a nice conversation, by just treating someone else like a regular human being. In fact, I think there's an old saying that you change the world with a single act of random kindness at a time. And he changed her world by just acting kind.
Yeah, and this kind of like this is something that I also think is representative of the name of the movie. So the name of the movie is called Magnolia, and Magnolia is a symbol of divinity, which is another part we'll go into. Divinity and nobility and greatness. And it's usually a Chinese symbol for nobility, greatness, and divinity. And I think the police officer in this movie he's almost a vehicle for telling the audience how they should act. But even then, he falls down a little bit because when he interacts with the kid, and the kid is basically telling him who the murderer is. He neglects the kid because, well, I mean, he's a kid. Why am I going to listen to a kid? I got better things to do.
Yeah, that's what's wrong with the world. We don't listen to kids.
Yeah, but it's
School
it's very
teacher.
it's very it's very interesting that he has this kind of infatuation with Claudia and well, yeah, Claudia, and the only thing that he really wants to do with Claudia is listen to her. He wants to hear what's wrong with Claudia, and the past of what her father did to her, but it's very one sided, and I don't know if Claudia is a reliable narrator in that sense, because the father clearly doesn't seem to understand or know, at least in the argument scene, about what's wrong. But I mean, it's probably possible because at least with his brain cancer, it could be affecting his memory and things like that.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think it's like a situation like in the movie called The Divergent. I think it was. No,
Hmm.
it was this Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale movie, and Christian Bale was kind of like responsible for the death of Hugh Jackman's wife,
Hmm.
and they were both magicians. And what the situation was, it was the whole escape from the tank of water with your hands tied,
Yeah.
and they practiced the trick using a particular knot, and she couldn't get out one day after he tied the knot, and he doesn't know if he tied the regular knot or a different kind of knot. Like he
Hmm.
just kept telling, "Did you tie this knot?" He's like, "I don't know," because he doesn't want to live with the guilt or anything. And I was just
Yeah.
like, "The hell?"
And that's it. That's the connection between Claudia and her dad. Most likely is that her dad doesn't understand why he can't connect with Claudia. Probably because he's fully placed this memory in the far corners of his mind where he will never reach it again, and he's living in a kind of bliss. And Claudia, in a similar way, is trying to avoid bringing this up. You know, she doesn't want to reconcile with her father. She just never wants to see her father again. She never wants to think of it, think of that moment ever again. Which is why she's throwing herself into drugs, into any kind of distraction,
Into
really,
vice, into forms of
into any other vice. And that's another beautiful part of the movie.
yeah. In my opinion, the way the movie's structured, it kind of like has the whole overarching situations, all the characters. Then it kind of breaks down to like main stories, which in my opinion was probably Philip Seymour Hoffman trying to connect with Tom Cruise,
Mm,
John C. Riley talking with Claudia, and I think there was another one, maybe even like the actual TV show of the of the game show. Just those three were the main ones, and then you had these actual individual stories underneath it, like with a Donnie, what's actually happening with Stanley, and like and maybe even a little bit of the actual interview.
Mm. It's
Speaking
it's
of,
almost it's almost noir in a sense. It's like multiple noir films that have been placed together. And like noir, for anyone who doesn't know, a noir is a genre where the whole point of the movie is to take a character and to break them down. Now that can be like either morally or can take them to like their lowest point humanly possible. And it's usually in detective stories where this occurs, because with a detective you can write a really moral character and just break them apart as you go through the movie. And I think that a similar thing has been done in Magnolia, except with nearly all the characters, where they all have a certain starting point, and over the course of the movie they just keep breaking apart the images of themselves, and breaking apart their traumas and their past, until they're eventually all at the point where they can confront this. And that moment where everyone sort of reaches the same point where they're finally ready to start confronting and start moving forward and moving out of this past cycle of trauma is the scene where the raining frogs come down from the sky.
I honestly thought that might be resembling of some weird uh, point in history where like some plane exploded, like exploded and let off like a whole bunch of frogs. I know that's a story about something. I cannot remember. It could have been like some peas or something. I know something happened on an airplane and caused all their cargo to fall, but it was raining frogs. No logical explanation. It was just raining frogs,
Mm-hmm.
just like in Exodus in the Bible.
Yeah, and the really interesting point is that if you look at the crowd of the quiz show, you will see a person holding a sign, and it's Exodus 8 verse 2. And Exodus 8 verse 2 reads like this. So, but if you refuse to let them go, behold, I will plague all your country with frogs. Now, in the context of the Bible, this means this is obviously in reference to the Jews, but in the context of this movie, I think the director is trying to make a different point, because like what is he saying to let go? What does he mean by if you do not let them go? He's talking about all this trauma that each character holds, that the past that they are holding on to, that they are going in this cycle of repeating and influencing the next generation into sharing the same sin as each other effectively. And sometimes, and I think this is the point that the movie is trying to make it with the raining frogs, is sometimes you require a divine intervention in order to move forward. Sometimes that's necessary, because it's only after the raining frogs that Stanley is actually able to move and stand up to his father and to
And
say, listen,
actually,
you gotta love me.
yeah, I also noticed that like a lot of the characters actually their change really did come after the Raining Frogs. Like Donnie, he actually sat down with John C. Reilly's cop character, and they actually had a conversation, and he decided like he actually started fixing himself up. John C. Reilly went and actually talked with Claudia exactly what his problems were, like how he has like a crap load of self doubt over himself after his divorce. Claudia let in not her father, her mother. Like she let her into her apartment, and they held each other while the whole raining was going on. It was when Tom Cruise's character actually not forgave, but really started opening up to the idea of having his father again. But that was when he was breaking down over his death.
Mm.
Um, Also,
And
when Claudia's
yeah,
father tried to kill himself as well.
I love this so much, and I think it's so intelligent, because I'm very on board with this kind of thinking, that sometimes you do need something that is above sometimes you need something that is above the natural world. Sometimes you do need something more, that you need something supernatural in order to push you over the edge that you're not willing to jump over, that you're not willing to jump off. And oh man, I just love that. I this is the one time. Well, I mean, it's a couple other times, but this is the one time when a director has taken a biblical verse and has transformed it in a way that I actually respect.
What about Evan Almighty?
This was no Evan Almighty was bullshit. This was so intelligent and it was just a very intelligent use of scripture, and I'm very appreciative of that. And I love that message there, that and especially, you know, relating to the name of the movie, Magnolia, a symbol of divinity. Sometimes you do need that divine intervention.
Yeah, I get that actually, and it's actually like things like that have actually happened to people in real life, like moments of unexplained, like that just can't be explained, or just can't be hit with logic, or maybe sometimes it can be hit with logic, but just people refuse to believe, and it just changes a person's life. Like don't forget, we went to St. John Bosco primary and college, and the story of St. John Bosco is that one time he had a dream of actually meeting God, and it actually led him to change his life and actually become a priest and actually start a boys' home, which actually helped out a lot of people.
This is a similar story. Like this makes me think that he actually knows a little bit of church history as well. Like because this story is repeated thousands of times in church history. So like Saint Augustine, he is one of the founding, like he's one of the most like cited fathers of the church, right? Saint Augustine, he's a saint now, but you know what he was before he became Saint Augustine? He was a corrupt politician. He was a gambler. He hired prostitutes. He was at a whorehouse every other day. Like this is the guy, and it was only through a similar moment, a similar divine intervention, where he actually reorientated his life. But you know, we don't even have to go into the level of, you know, unexplained event, because sometimes it's not an unexplained event, but it's kind of like a lightning moment that you have in your own thoughts and your own processes, right? When you're just reflecting, and eventually you reflect enough on a certain situation where the answer will just hit you, and it becomes this transformative moment in your life. And like I know I've had a couple of these lightning moments in my life, and I wouldn't call them exactly divine interventions, but they're definitely transformative moments that come out of nowhere, that effectively come out of the supernatural.
Yeah, moments of clarity and sudden realization.
Yeah.
All right. With that, I think we are going to close off.
Oh my god, we only scratched the surface.
This was an amazing movie. It probably wouldn't be like in 1999. It would be something amazing today. Unfortunately, with like Facebook and all that, a lot of people probably wouldn't have the attention span to have this type of movie.
Oh my
but
god, no.
Yeah. And it was a really good movie. If you haven't seen it, we actually do recommend it on some level. It is one of those ones, if you're just going to sit down, if you really want to actually challenge yourself and really think about the human condition. And with that, we are going to sign off. Next episode, we are going to be focusing on the Robin Williams and Kirsten Dunst movie, Jumanji. We're going to focus on the idea of, rather than survival of the fittest, is the survival of the creatures that become strong. And with that, I am Lewis.
And I'm Jack.
Please leave a like and subscribe, and maybe even a comment if you're watching this on YouTube. And we will see you on the next episodes of Metaphysics of Fiction. See ya.
See ya.